Hi there, Victor Frost, speaking to you, Anarchist artist. I am continuing to respond to a post that was left on my Facebook wall in response to my video, anarchist communist, what say thee? Very thoughtful, very interesting response to that video, and this is the third installment to responding to that post on my wall, and it comes from a individual who designates himself on the political spectrum as a anarcho-communist. Though I suspect that he is not fully committed to such a designation, that I think that he has mixed premises when it comes to capitalism and communism. The anarcho part, I know, can be confusing to a lot of people when they place the prefix anarcho before communism, and in other cases people are confused when anarcho is placed before capitalism. But that is the philosophical battle that's going on, and it's very important to understand in terms of fundamental ethical principles what would separate the two. If there is an artificial separation in terms of peripheral philosophical matters, or if there's a fundamental break and an ethical divide, is the thing to strive to understand and comprehend when it comes to anarcho-capitalism versus anarcho-communism. And I think that this person has a mixed bag of various disconnected philosophical premises rummaging through his head that's weighing down and slowing down the machinery of thinking, just like in the same sense that if you don't defragment or decookify your computer and you get a lot of screens up, it can slow down the process, and you're sitting there waiting forever to get to Google something, and the clock is ticking and you're just weighed down with being short of memory. You have a lot of superfluous stuff on your computer, clogging it up, and slows down the outcome that you want. And I think that that's how people can very much. It's a good analogy to use in terms of how people weigh down their thinking with a lot of irrelevancies. You have to take an epistemological Occam's razor to and just get to the fundamental points. And what as an example of that, in terms of fundamental ethical points, is not to get confused on certain kind of flowery aspects of communism that you might have gathered. You know, you might have heard from somewhere. Communism is about sharing. You know, it's about a distribution of wealth. And if you think, yeah, that sounds good. You know, yeah, that's a very good ethical principle. We should live in a society where there is a distribution of wealth, because distribution represents sharing and caring, and that's a good thing. You see, that's good. So then, if you elevate that kind of ethical standard, it's within the realm of ethics that we're talking about. You can't escape that branch of philosophy. That's where we are when it comes to the questions of how society should run in the distribution, that everybody's well fed and taken care of and well-being, and these are ethical questions. So if you think that that kind of principle elevates everything above and beyond any other consideration, and that includes, if it takes violating the non-aggression principle, well, that's the way that it has to go. You know, that's you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, and that's the approach that you take. And the actual non-aggression principle, in terms of in its violation, constitutes a physical force against an individual. That's what the non-aggression principle is about. But you find, my friend, that with a lot of the anarcho-communists, that they give a certain amount of lip service to the non-aggression principle, and others will just out and out are just hostile or sarcastic towards it. And there's other things that are just more important to them. You know, just like we can't have the exploitation of the worker, the proletariat's rights, and the capitalist who seeks a profit, and by offering slave wages to the proletariat, to the working class. You can't have that. That is the terrible thing. You know, and I'm not saying that exploitation is a great thing, even in the Marxist sense. That's not what I'm saying, though. But if you regard these things as problems and you seek out political solutions, or propose societal solutions to what you perceive to be societal ills, and that involves some kind of coercive mechanism in which to have that enforced, that everybody will contribute, contribute to their fair share, as it said, then we're not talking about anarchism anymore. We're not talking about voluntaryism. If you place that above all other considerations as worthy as they can be in their own merits, and there can be other alternative means to solving society's social ills. Whatever that social ill is, right? It's it could be a subjective social ill like atheism. Ooh, we can't have that. Society's ill now. They're predominantly atheist, but actual societal ills, whether it can be prostitution and exploitation of people in the sense of cults and whatnot. That's that type of thing goes on. They're societal ills, though. But to have a violent, coercive mechanism, centralized force, a coercive monopoly on the use of force, so long as it's the lip service is that we have to have that kind of monopoly in order to achieve the common good. Well, then then you're talking about physical force, coercive society to tend to these issues. You're talking about an entirely different philosophy than voluntarism. It's one or the other, my friends. One or the other. So you really don't have to think that there's some kind of dichotomy, some kind of split in the worlds of where you have on one side you have people who are sharing and caring, and then on the other side you have voluntarism and free markets and competitiveness versus sharing and caring and distribution of wealth and loving. It's in any society. Any society, you have people who are profit-seeking. They don't do it at somebody else's expense. They're just very crafty businessmen who offer a product or a service that people want, and people pay for it. And they have other people who are very philanthropic in their approach. They're very engaged in charities and whatnot. They have but that's what a free society is about. That you can choose what the hell you want to do. Okay, the fundamental thing here, I'm going to say it again and again and again, again until the people. I mean, you don't. Nobody has to agree with me. Nobody has to agree with me. But I want to be understood. I want to be understood, and I have not been ambiguous in regards to my philosophical principles. Those who are philosophical anarchists of the anarcho-capitalist sort are not ambiguous as to where they stand on the ethical divide. It is clear. It is clear. That is the common thread throughout philosophically minded, principle-based free market anarcho-capitalists are committed to, is the non-aggression principle and a firm understanding of what that means. And I sincerely and truly believe, unfortunately, I guess, that the anarcho-communists are not coming from the same fundamental philosophical premises. You can, I seriously invite you to read the post that that will be responded to this video or some other videos, and to read them very carefully and to see how slippery the language is and how deceptive and misleading. In my estimate, but you decide, you see, you use your own reasoning mind. I'm just putting this forward as something that you have to filter through your own head, okay? It's not a fucking cult, it's not a religion here, it's about ethical principles, and it's about thinking for yourself. So you do that, and I hope that I've given you something to think about. This is Victor Prost, anarcho-capitalist. Pop goes the culture.